Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Well, good evening everybody and welcome back to the Apex Racing Academy F4 Championship. My name is Ron Mullins. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Aaron Smith, and in the virtual production hall we have our old buddy Samuli Kumo. We're here for the 5th round of the season, coming to you tonight here on Apex Racing TV from the Nurburgring. Sadly, we aren't running on the Nordschleife, although I think that would have been pretty cool. Instead, we're running on the frankly underappreciated Grand Prix layout, first constructed all the way back in 1984 as a refurbishment to the previously abandoned Südschleife layout. It's undergone some tweaks over the years to get to the layout that we'll be using here today. Now, during last week's broadcast at Bathurst, Aaron, you said that you're looking forward to seeing how these cars would race around this track. Do you want to elaborate on that for the viewers here?
I most certainly will. I mean, this track is really good for racing in these lower formula cars and just lower speed cars in general. Once you sort of get to, I guess, kind of F2, F1 level, it becomes a bit harder and harder. F3 is somewhere in the middle. It's pretty good, but it can be quite difficult. But I think the right balance is these kind of speeds of cars. F4 around here, it's going to be constant action. It should be overtakes pretty much at every corner. You can go for some kind of overtake. Turn 1, lap 1 is going to be hectic as all hell. The final lap as well, coming through the last chicane and the last corner, might get a run to the line if we're lucky. I've seen it a few times here, but it's a track that even if you have a dull race as a driver, it's always fun. Every single corner here is pretty good. It's really, really nice feeling once you get it right. The only weak point for me is the first sector. I feel like turns 1 to 5 are a bit weak. I do prefer the older one. I think it was the late 90s when they used to just skip the entire first part of the track. And they still have that layout today, just a bit more narrower, but we should get some good racing here, and maybe not as chaotic as Bathurst, but should still be fun.
Well, I think one of the reasons why this race won't be nearly as chaotic as we saw in Bathurst is mainly just because there aren't many overtaking opportunities in terms of just slipstreaming past each other, of course, coming out of turn number 12 and careening your way into that chicane towards the end of the lap. That is the longest straightaway with a small little curve where I'm sure we're going to see plenty of drivers try and go side by side through there, trying to avoid that killer curb on the inside because that will be deadly. I'm kind of inclined to agree with you there, Aaron. I do not really like the AMG Arena section, as it's called once you go through that very tight turn number 1 and go into this section that feels like it has 50,000 miles of asphalt runoff on the outside of it, and that killer curb on the outside. I've seen plenty of drivers get beached on that so far in this practice session, so that may be something that plays a role in both this race that we have coming up as well as this qualifying session that we are in right now. 3 minutes and 20 seconds in to this 10-minute session here, and one of the reasons why we've seen such hard racing is because these drivers are fighting for prizes. $650 in Apex Racing TV, not Apex Racing TV, Apex Racing Academy subscriptions, I should say. And as per tradition here on these broadcasts here on Apex Racing TV, we do have the currency conversions for you. 824 US dollars is at 650 pounds. It's also about 759 euros. And lastly, in keeping with the tradition started by Sam and David over at the late Apex, it's about 45 extravaganza pizzas from Domino's. Now, for legal reasons, we can't say that we're sponsored by Domino's or affiliated with them in any way, shape, or form. Here are the point standings. It's Archie Heron at the front there, 408 points on the standings right now. Wheelman well in there in P number 2. He's been a very fast driver for Wave Italy Racing, but he's come to blows with his teammate there on multiple occasions. Thinking about Okayama when they crash into each other when they were running 1-2. So he's currently second in the championship standings with reigning pro champion Burgesson there in P number 3. You can see the rest of the drivers in the pro standings right now. We'll move on to Pro-Am here and take a look at that fight, which was very tight, and it's still very tight. You can see Heldorn at the front there at a 371 points accumulated thus far. Only 2 points ahead of Lortzen there in P number 2. Michelson in 3, a little bit farther back than McFarquhar and Luan Holt rounding out your top 5 in the Pro-Am category. Then we'll take a quick look at the Am standings and see another pretty tight fight here. 1 point separating Tim Runn and Lucas Levinson at the front of the running order in the Am standings right now. Jay Walsh in P number 3, Plastow in 4th, and Spence rounding out the top 5. But 1 point separating the two drivers at the front of these Am standings. After tonight's race, we will be officially halfway through the season, and we have some awesome championship fights really to figure out who's going to be the one holding out in those fights between now and the end of the season in a few weeks' time.
The thing I always liked about F4, both driving it and just watching it, is the fact that every single race there's always someone different who seems to be quickest. I think over the past few races it has been fairly dominant by both the Finns in the Wave Italy team. Wellen and Kumala have been super quick ever since they entered into this season. They missed the first round, so their 1 drop score is already out the window, so they can't really afford a bad race over the rest of this season. But I mean, we've got a fantastic championship battle in all 3 classes going on. I think in pro, genuinely, anyone inside at the moment the top 6 in the championship could still have a decent shot. Heron does have a decent points advantage at the moment, but that can swing so easily, especially in these Formula 3 cars where we've seen chaos all the time. And there is Calix Poon going for a spin into turn 1. He's currently your pole man, provisionally 2 tenths, nearly 3 tenths ahead of Heron in second place. As well, I don't think that spin's going to cost him too much, but he'll have to tow back to the pits and probably won't be able to get another decent lap into this session. But yeah, like I was saying, in every single class we've got a really good battle going on. I think pro might be, it's difficult to say, depends how good Wellen goes, because he's been rather dominant these past few rounds. Pro-Am looks to be the closest. You've got, I think, the top 8 all separated by about 100 points, which, like I said before, can swing very, very easily. And the amateurs, only about 3 or 4 cars involved in that fight, but either way, we've got some fantastic championship battles as Wellen goes to the top.
Yeah, Wellen, I've given him the nickname Wheelman Wellen for a very good reason. He has been running up towards the front of all of these races. Really, if he didn't have his teammate crash into him 2 weeks in a row at Okayama and Silverstone, he would be probably in the lead of this championship ever since he joined the series after missing out on that first round in Jerez. Ever since he joined at Silverstone, he has been a force to be reckoned with, and right now is a force to be reckoned with. The first driver to break into that 1 minute 56 barrier in this qualifying qualifying session. And you mentioned Poon there in P number 2. He talked to us after the Bathurst race last Saturday here on Apex Racing TV, and he said that he wasn't really going to focus on the championship here in this series. That was the first race that he had with us in this season of Apex Racing Academy Formula 4. But right now he is proving himself as a very speedy driver in the races that he does do. So I think if he is just a fixture of the series between now and the end of the season, we may be seeing Calix Poon slide his way into victory lane before the season's up. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. In the previous season of F4, Poon was very, very competitive. He was one of my favourite drivers. Was always giving it his best, and always got his elbows out as well. Was always willing to put up a fight with whoever he was racing against. So I think he'll do pretty well over the course of the season. And starting second place at the moment would put him on pole in that second heat race. But of course, if he does win that heat race, he will still be starting second for the feature race anyway. It's definitely, you want to be in that first heat race. I mean, obviously you can't really, aim for a place in qualifying. Wherever you qualify is where you qualify. I mean, if you are a driver that can do an exact time to get you into a certain place that you want, then I mean, props to you, because I don't know if anyone has ever managed to do that successfully. But that first heat race is definitely where I'd want to be. That second heat race always is, if you get second or third or first, it's like, oh yes, let's go. But then you realize, oh, I'm going to be starting further back in the feature race than I'd want to. But of course, getting into that heat race and getting through to the A final is a lot better than going into the B final.
And for those just turning into their first ever broadcast here of the Apex Racing Academy F4 Championship, I'll quickly remind you of the format as we're in the dying stages of this qualifying session. The top 6 drivers from the 2 heat races we have coming up later on tonight will advance to the A main, the final show here tonight, and then the drivers that don't make it in through the heat races will get sent down to the B main, where they'll be fighting for the top 4 spots in that race to punch their ticket into the A main. We're in the dying stages of this qualifying session. As I said, we're following Jay Walsh right now, having a very clunky run coming through that chicane. The checkered flag has come at, and the drivers have been put back into their pit positions, and we'll get the starting grid for the first heat race here in just a few moments time. And it's the faces that we always see up towards the front of these races. You can see Wheelman Wellen taking the pole for this first heat race. Archie Heron there in P2. Theodore Burgeson, reigning champion, that's why he's running in the number 1. He'll be starting this race in 3rd. Harvey Jones will be in 4th, then Michelson in 5th, McFarquhar in 6th, Amblard in 7th, Lewin Hott in P number 8, Spetskins in 9th. Very upsetting result there for the driver in the pro category, and Tim Runn there putting a pretty good drive there in the 10th position starting this race. And it's Walsh, Gill, and Guzumwell rounding out your field. Tim Runn was a pretty good driver in that qualifying session, starting up towards the front. The top running in the qualifying session of the AM drivers. We'll see what he can do in this session to try and break his way into that A main. We'll be getting the start here in just a few moments time. I can faintly see the drivers starting to line up on that starting grid. Usually, sometimes that we see in these starting grid for these races, they wait until the very last moment, maybe to psych out some of their competitors, wait for them to add a little bit of a psychological advantage. You can see only Burgess in there lined up on the outside right now. So we're waiting for these drivers to get lined up. You see them populating the grid here on the start-finish line. It's going to be a very interesting run heading into turn number 1. Downhill, you're carrying a decent amount of speed before you have to hit the brakes. Heading into turn number 1, that is going to be a fantastic run that these drivers will have to deal with in just a few moments time, waiting for some of the last drivers to line up there. You can see some more. I believe that's Harvey Jones that just popped his way onto the grid. Some more drivers up towards the front. Some drivers. Wellen has not joined. Oh, there he is. Perfect timing there for Wellen to pop into the grid. Just one more, or a few more, actually, yeah, just one more driver. Michelson has now joined the grid, so we're going to get the lights here. The 5 lights are going to go out, and after that, the drivers will be on their way, waiting for those lights to go out. The drivers are going to build the revs and try and get the best start they can in these low grip F4 cars. The drivers are on their way now, heading into turn number 1. It's a pretty good start there for your pole sitter, Wheelman Wellen. Meanwhile, Burgesson and Heron fighting for positions farther in the back. I see drivers fanning out to 3 wide before they even get into turn number 1. Be very careful to get through here clean. The change in weight can really make these drivers spin coming through one, especially on these very cold tires, but everyone has gone through turn number 1 clean thus far, going through the arena section now, going through 3, and now into the quickly proceeding corner number 4. Everyone getting through cleanly thus far, and it's a great start there for Welland, who leads them coming into turn number 6 for the first time by.
I always say I'm proud of these boys whenever they make it through the first few corners cleanly, and well, I'll say it again, they've done well this time round, but of course we are only about a third of the way through this first lap, and it's been relatively calm so far, only like a couple places gained here and there. Axel Guzman's already up 2 places though. Amberlard's now going to try and gain back his place that he lost at the start from Luan Hart as they go side by side through the hairpin. Now up they come to the Schumacher S. Not really a corner you want to be going side by side through, and smartly they go single file through there. Easy flat in these cars. It's quite a satisfying corner, to be honest. Even though, like I said, it's easy flat, still satisfying nonetheless. Now coming down to this tricky left-hander, very difficult to spot out the braking through here. Everyone seems to be doing it right. Now this right-hander, be careful not to get on throttle too early and wash out onto the curb there like Spetkins did. It can really grind out your foot and put you onto the gravel if you're not careful. Now for a pretty tricky overtaking opportunity, you kind of have to have the cooperation of both drivers coming into this last chicane. Bergson up into 3rd place, defending from Harvey Jones. A couple moves further back. Luan Hot, I think, has messed up at that chicane. It's caused a big kerfuffle further back. They're all going nearly 3 wide, as that's a car going very, very wide through that last corner. That's Amberlard, who I said was fighting all the way up to 7th. I think he might have gotten a slowdown cutting that chicane. And this is absolute chaos at the back at the end of this first lap.
Ooh, hard racing going down the start finish straight away to begin lap 2. You see him fanning out, going side by side, entering corner number 1. Jay Walsh dropping down. Oh, that's a mistake. Oh, and we have a driver on his lid. Alrighty, drivers scattering their way around the track. I see parts flying all around. I see a driver missing their rear wing. That, I believe, is Guzmel. Yeah, terrible start for the pro driver with that contact. Spetkins as well. Lots of pro drivers taken out in this incident. We're going to take a look at what caused that stack up in the first place. We're following Luan Hot heading his way into this chicane here, and ooh, yeah, it was just a big stack up, and he clipped that inside curb and got all sorts of wrong coming through that chicane. That's a reason why he lost so much time there. But in all that stack up and all that chaos, it created a massive stack up as they went through the 16th corner, the final corner of this lap. And wow, that was a very dramatic incident. We may have to take a look at a replay there, but I don't even think there was any driver necessarily in the wrong there. I think that was just very hard racing very early on into this race, and drivers going side by side in a corner where you don't really expect it to end well.
I think it was one of the guys who were a little bit further up who spun on the exit, and it just kind of caused a bit of a mess. I don't know if there was contact. Oh, that's McFarquhar going very, very wide, and like I said, on the previous lap, you can easily wash out wide onto that curb, and well, it's lost him a place to Bergson. He's going to have to be careful of Harvey Jones behind him. Oh, he's getting super close to the Swede in front of him, but they all managed to keep it clean. Bergson goes a little bit wide, but they all remain single file. And yeah, on that last lap, Amberlard did get a slowdown, which is why he was pretty much the reason why they all stacked up and caused that big 4-car pile-up. Right, here we go then. This is the battle for the podium. McFarquhar would dearly love to end up on it, as it would put him nicely into 5th place on the feature race start. And, well, in a Pro-Am Drivers' Championship, that's very important. He's only got Michelson 2 places behind, who will pick up any scraps. They get very close to each other coming through this section. It just goes to show how there's nothing really between a lot of these guys. They are absolutely nose to tail. They are super quick. Oh, Bergerson sliding his way through turn 4. But there's a bit of a gap between himself and Archie Heron, and then a little bit more to Wellen in front. Wellen definitely seems to be a man who I would say is up there for the championship. He's about 50 points behind the Brit in 2nd place right now. But I think Wellen's just got the momentum. He's won the last few races in absolute dominant fashion, of course, at Bathurst. So it's very much in his favour, but Archie Heron has the points advantage. And let's see what they can do from this season, at this point in the season onwards.
We're still just barely halfway through this race. There's still a lot to fight here. We're riding on board with McFarquhar, trying to get a move done here on Burgess, heading into corner number 11. This is such a pain in the butt corner for me. I absolutely hate it on this track. I think Burgesson was in the midst of hating it too. He had some big snaps heading through that corner this time by, and you can see McFarquhar trying to find any way to get past his adversary there to move into the podium places. He's got the draft, he's got the slipstream. Is he going to go for a move heading into the chicane, nearly bump drafting, going down that back straightaway? It just shows you how these drivers, we've said so much throughout these broadcasts this season, these drivers, sometimes it feels like they simply do not fear death. Bump drafting in an F4 car, I do not think so. So thankfully, they thought better of it, but still very close there. Burgesson drifting his way, coming around the final corner, and McFarquhar is going to have a great run here. Is he going to go for the move heading into corner number 1? I think he may be taking it easy at this stage. He realizes, hey, I still have about 2 laps left to go. Bump drift, that was definitely very close to bump drifting. I believe they might have actually made contact with some bump drifting going down that start-finish straightaway that time by. Still very close on track right now. 2 drivers that aren't are Michelson and Run, so Run has a pretty big gap to try and surmount if he wants to get up to Michelson to move into that final transfer spot. So I think the fights are really going to be between these 4, between P number 3 and P number 6. I don't think we're going to have a battle for the final transfer spot, which is a little bit of a shame, but something we came to expect after that big moment that we had on lap 2.
I mean, one thing's for sure, we're going to have an entertaining B final. We've got some pretty well-established drivers in there. At the moment, looks like there's going to be Tim Rutten, who we know is quick, but just seems to have lost touch a little bit in this race. And Ballard as well, we know how quick he is, but he got caught up in that second lap chaos. And of course, we've got Hot, Speckins and Guzman. So it's going to be, so far anyway, an absolutely stacked B race. And we're going to be watching 3 pros in it so far, 1 Pro-Am. And, well, that should be a very good race to watch, but we're going to focus our attention back to the top 6, which, like Ron mentioned, is basically the only battling we're going to get later on in this race. Harvey Jones has just lost touch with the car in front. He's, although saying that, McFarquhar did make a mistake coming around that last corner, which he seems to be making a mistake every single lap. He seems to be running very, very wide compared to the other cars. I don't know if he's just pushing really hard to try and keep touch with Bergson in front, or is trying to get past him. Of course, on that last lap, he was just holding back a little bit, but perhaps maybe he should have gone for that move as a bit of a mistake from Harvey Jones. This is going to put him under pressure into turn 1. He ran very wide, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. There's only about 3/10 between them, and Harvey Jones does have a tiny slipstream from the cars in front, so I think he's safe for this lap. And wow, are we going to get any more racing from these guys? Oh, he's a bit wide from him again, but just no way through for Michelson at the moment. It would be good points for him in the Pro-Am Championship. And also McFarquhar is looking to gain back those points that he lost in those opening few rounds, where we knew he had the pace, but just was so unlucky getting himself involved in a couple incidents.
I think Jones had a massive snap exiting turn 1 this past time by. I don't know why my brain for some reason struggled to say turn number 1. He had a big snap there, ran wide coming through that last corner, and right now he is really feeling the pressure from Michelson right behind. I think Michelson is feeling a little bit of pressure on himself as well. He wants to challenge McFarquhar there to try and be with his fellow Pro-Am for the starting grid and for the finishing positions here for this first heat race. It's nice currently running in P6. He has no real challenge from Run, who at this point is about 5 seconds behind, but I think Michelson still wants to go out for glory here, get past Jones, say, hey, I beat a pro driver in this first heat race. That would be a nice thing to say, add to his resume if you would. But the battle right in front of them, McFarquhar and Burgesson, we'll see if he has another snap coming through this corner. I think McFarquhar didn't actually make a mistake coming through turn 12 this time by. He ran wide, had a big snap the last few times, but I think he's in that dirty air, which is barely effective in these Formula 4 cars. They slipstream well, but they basically produce no downforce whatsoever. So the dirty air isn't too bad in these cars, but there still is just a tiny fraction of dirty air that these drivers have to deal with. And maybe that's a reason why McFarquhar is having such terrible exits coming out of turn number 12 and going onto that back straightaway.
Well, we're about to find out if that slipstream that you were just talking about is going to be effective. Of course, Bergson goes defensive towards the inside line into turn 1. Definitely the smartest thing to do. And, it looks like in the background as well, Harvey just fending off Michelson as well as we go nearly side by side through turn 2. And or is Farquhar, a bit of contact between these two. Farquhar has the inside line. He's going to send it on the Swede, and that was a nice overtake. Took the opportunity when he saw it, and Bergson, gotta say, made a defensive blunder there. He's going to have to spend this next about, I want to say, a minute of this race trying to get back onto the podium. And, well, it's, yeah, I would expect a little bit better there from Bergson, I can't lie. Just kind of left the door wide open on the exit of turn 2. But, hey-ho, he's going to try and make a comeback over these next few corners. Going up the inside into the hairpin, that's a bold move. Make sure they don't make contact. They've got to worry about Harvey Jones behind them. Bit of contact, but McFarquhar just about stays ahead. And Jones trying to sneak up into this battle as well. I mean, if this turns into a 3-car battle, this is going to get really awkward as McFarquhar goes defensive. Bergson going to try and seize it round the outside. Look at the speed that the Swede is carrying. Nearly contact side pod to side pod. But the Swede is back up into 3rd place. Now, that was a fantastic move from the reigning champion, but McFarquhar's going to try and come back round the outside into this next corner. It's 3 wide. 3 wide into this chicane. This cannot end well. Surely there's a block up from Bergson, and Jones goes off the track. That's going to be a slowdown. Contact between Bergson and McFarquhar. It's now 4 wide nearly. As we head into the last corner, 3 wide. McFarquhar just about ahead. Bergson making contact. It's going to be 3 wide. Run to the line. Who's going to get on the podium? It's the Brit, the Pro-Am, McFarquhar. What an absolutely fantastic final lap from these 4 to give us an entertaining run to the line. Absolutely incredible from all of them. And a little bit of contact, wheel banging, that's allowed. And while we were looking at that, it was a really close finish as well between Welling and Heron as well. Only less than 2/10 separated them. So a bit of a shame we couldn't have 2 views at once. I'm not sure how much fighting went on between them. But wow, what a battle between 4 cars for 1 spot. 4 wide, nearly, going around the final corner. Incredible stuff.
4 wide before they enter that final corner. These drivers are absolutely insane. That was an awesome finish to end this first heat race. Here's a starting grid for the second one. It's Poon at the front, Centurk in P number 2 looking for a redemption after a terrible round at Bathurst last time by. That's Larson in P number 3, Jordan Johnson in P number 4, Van Dalen in 5th, Heldorn in P number 6, Seth Lee in 7th, Labinson in P number 8, Lorenzato in 9th, and that's Zudwell running at the top 10. You can look at the rest of the grid here, and we're going to get the start here. The lights are already on, and the drivers are going to be on their way heading into turn number 1. It's a pretty even keel start there. Poon actually had a much better launch than Centurk, who's now being challenged by Lortzen right behind. We'll see if these drivers can get through lap 1 clean like we saw in that first heat race, going side by side into that first corner. That's a fantastic start for Jordan Johnson, who's now trying to get the move done on Centurk, going through the arena the first time by, still side by side, making a little bit of contact coming through that corner. They're still side by side as they enter turn number 3, about to enter 4 in just a few moments time. That was a big snap there from Centurk. He's now at risk of losing a position there from Larson. They get through the first 4 and 5 corners of this lap clean. Lewis Gordon is currently the only retiree from this race. I believe he didn't even actually take the start. So currently 12 drivers on track right now. Poon leading, trying to stretch his legs right now as we see some battling all throughout this field. Lorenzato and De La Guedre now battling right towards the tail end of the top 10. Labinson running just outside that transfer window, and Mark Van Dalen is actually holding on to that last transfer spot for now. We didn't see any of the AM drivers punch their way into that A main through that first heat race. Will we see one here in the second heat race?
Well, we know how crucial for that AM Championship points-wise it's going to be if you can make it into that A final. It's absolutely huge. Oh, that's an outside move for Lorenzato. And oh, he's got it done. Actually, it was Degualeldre, I apologise there, on Lorenzato. The 2 Frenchmen going at it. And wow, this is a really good racing for 10th place. They've just lost a little bit out to the cars in front of them. They're going to be going side by side into the chicane, which we discovered last race is not that smart of an idea, as Lorenzato makes his way back up into 10th. I think Pollard might have had a big lock-up into that last corner. And this Lauritsen under a lot of pressure now from these cars. Sentuk's trying to make his way up into third place, which he has done at the moment. Held on, trying to follow him through. This is for the Pro-Am lead at the moment. They're going side by side. A little bit of a lift for the Dutchman as he just lets Lauritsen go on by, as Lauritsen tries to go back up the inside, but sends Sentuk rolling over, and he's just about managed to keep it on. There's a spinner as well. That's Zutuele who's going to fall all the way to the back, but that's bad news for the Turk, who is in the championship fight, and Lauritsen's now been spun round with Labinson as well. I think that's Van Dalen as well is involved. And that's a few big incidents we've had in the space of 3 corners. Lauritsen, Van Dalen, Sentuk have all had their own incidents, and Lorenzato has gone from 10th to 6th. Labinson, we were just talking about the AMs, he's up into 4th place. We know he's got some decent pace, and it's looking good for the Dane.
That was a shocking turn of events in the span of about 30 seconds. 2 incidents in the span of just barely any time. And Senturk, who we thought was going for a barrel roll trip in the runoff area of turn number 1, is currently running in P8. He has a bit of a gap between himself and Lorenzato, who is currently in that last transfer spot in P number 6. That would be a really good recovery drive from Senturk if he clawed back into those transfer spots. We'll take a look at a replay of the drama that ensued here coming through corner number 1, and all started with these 2 drivers going side by side, heading into 1. Lauritsen, oh yeah, he just overshot himself a little bit, got a little bit of a sideways kick coming through corner number 1, and sent Senturk around and nearly barrel rolling there. That was very close to him going and ending up on his lid there. So I think Senturk is probably thanking his lucky stars that he didn't go barrel rolling there, because that looked like it was very close to it.
Yeah, he's a very, very lucky man that he's still in this race in the background as well. I think there's someone coming into the pit lane. Couldn't quite see who it was. We'll possibly get a look at Isla Ritson. That's not good for the Pro-Am Championship at all. This is Sentuk trying to gain a place on Degualeldre for 7th place, as the Frenchman has just been running nicely in this race so far. Oh, it's another spin for Sentuk. That was unexpected. I'm not sure if he might be carrying damage from that contact he had, but that looked like a very awkward spin. I don't know if he pinched himself on the inside of that corner and just tried to light up the tyres, but that's a big, big mistake. Degualeldre didn't really put him under any pressure, so we've seen Sentuk driving angry before. We saw it at Bathurst. So maybe he might be doing the same and just might need to calm down a little bit as he tries to gain back these places, but he's a long way off 6th place now. And he's made a move on to LA for 9th place. He's got Van Dalen in front of him, but he's just going to have to put himself in a better place for that B final now. He's 6 seconds off that 6th place spot, which even for a man like him with his speed, it's just going to be a little bit too much.
He's going to have to hope for some sort of massive accident to happen farther up towards the front, which is unlikely because those drivers currently running in the top 6 are separated by, well, nearly a second separating all of them currently in this race. You can see Lorenzato 6.6 seconds behind Poon really himself, and Lee in P5 and P6 is the only close fight, about 0.7 of a second separating those 2 drivers right now. So Senturk really has to pray that there's some sort of massive accident that happens farther up towards the front, but really at this stage it's damage control for Senturk, and it all started with that spin. Really, after that accident that he had with Lauritsen, there was a chance for him to claw his way through the field, but after that spin, that hammering sound that I heard when he went for that spin was a nail being hammered in his coffin, the final one. And man, it's so tough there for Senturk. He is a very quick driver, don't get me wrong, but it's these low mistakes that are costing him so badly. He's been running up towards the front. He's one of the fastest drivers in this series pace-wise, but he is also one of the streakiest. If he can work on those mistakes and work on those small low incidents and work on making himself angry in the race car and just cooling his nerves, he would be a driver that we see running up towards the top 5 in the championship and running in the top 5 of these races week in and week out. But sadly for Senturk, thanks to a self-driven mistake coming through corner number 1 a lap after a crash, he is definitely on the back foot here.
Oh, and speaking of crashes, very awkward there between Zutuele and Van Dalen. They got super close to each other. Not really sure what happened there. I think Van Dalen was just going super slow on the apex, and it's given Zutuele a bit of damage now as well. That's going to hamper him for all the rest of this race. Surprisingly, on this game, I think, the only thing that does annoy me a little bit is how the front wing damage does affect you. It's very strange. No matter what car you're driving, no matter if it's F4, F3, or F1 or whatever you're driving, front wing damage just it works in mysterious ways. Because obviously it makes you a little bit slower in the corners, but just on the straights, I understand having front wing damage can affect your drag in real life, but not to this extent. It is a bit extreme, and maybe iRacing do need to have a little bit of a tweak with that at some point. But I mean, of course, next season they've got bigger things on their mind, like adding rain for the first time, which is going to be absolutely huge, and I'm sure we'll be seeing that a couple times here on Apex Racing TV. We might even just have a rain series, just with cars, just every week, and I'd definitely turn up to watch that. That would be super fun, watching iRacers experience wet for the first time. Some of them would be very, very confused, but I think it would be entertaining nonetheless. And while we're talking about the new iRacing features as well, the fact they're adding the new Super Lights, Super Formula Lights next season, that's going to be an interesting addition. I'm not quite sure where it fits in. I mean, I think they're faster than Formula 3s, and hopefully we'll be able to see them on Apex Racing TV. And oh no, that's Lorenzato, who was running in a comfortable 6th place, who's just seemingly stopped at the first corner.
Yeah, what in the world happened here? We're taking a look at a replay. Heading into corner number 1, was it just some sort of hardware failure for him and goes straight on and...
Maybe.
I think maybe some hardware failure. I think he realized that he was going to overshoot that corner, just pulled into the runoff area and decided to give up. That could have been it. He was running outside the transfer spot, so I think Lorenzato was like, hey, look, I'm done. I'll consolidate my losses and head into the B main. Coming up in just a few moments' time, we're going to be taking the white flag next time by. Delaguedre now in at P number 6. He is the last driver in that transfer spot, has a 2-second gap, nearly a 2-second gap between himself and Centurk, who's recovered quite nicely, currently running in P7. If one of the drivers in the top 6 make a mistake, he will transfer his way into the A main, which would be a fantastic recovery for the Turkish driver after nearly rolling over one lap, spinning the next, and driving like his hair was on fire in the immediate moments afterwards. Centurk, as I said, very fast driver, very streaky driver, drifting, coming through corner number 11 there. Centurk, if he makes it up into the transfer spots, that would be an absolute dream race for him thus far. You can see the lap, you can see the time left in this race slowly ticking down. I think it'll be barely Poon getting the white flag this time by. He's now in the start fast straight away, so it will be one lap to go for the driver who's dominated this race. We really haven't paid too much attention to him in the number 159 car. He's just pulled away. Johnson had a fantastic start, I should say, and made his way into P2 fairly early on. And with the drivers going off, it looks like we're only going to have 2 pro drivers make their way into the A main from the second heat race. That would be a big upset with Labinson, the AM driver, running in P4 right now. That'd be a fantastic storyline to follow. Heading into that B main race coming up in just a few moments' time, which, as you said during that first heat race, Aaron, is going to be dramatic. And with the mistakes that we saw from Centurk, he will definitely be a man on a mission when it comes time for that race, I should say. I can't really get my words out here. The action from this race has just been so dramatic. It is fumbling with my speech. Centurk is slowly reeling in Delaguedre now. You can see actually the gap that's about 7/10 of a second separating the two of them. So did Delaguedre make some kind of mistake in the arena section this time by? Because that gap is absolutely cratered. If he has one more mistake, he may allow Centurk to move into that transfer spot. That'll be a very upsetting result there if Delaguedre moves out of the transfer spot in the dying stages of this race. We're about halfway through this final lap here, and there's a lot of storylines left to be decided. Jordan Johnson currently running in P number 2. He has a 6/10 of a second gap between himself and Heldorn. Will we see Heldorn be close enough to make a move heading into the final chicane? I doubt it very highly. It's looking pretty good though. P2 from a driver who we've been been considering as a little bit of a disappointment so far this season. He was outlined as one of the championship favorite coming into the season. The Apex Racing Academy driver has not had the best season in the world, but this would be a good way to recover if he finishes P2 in this race, which is looking likely. Ooh, he had a big curb back there going through the chicane this time by. I think he'll hold off on that position unless he has a terrible run coming through this final corner. But this second heat race is all about Poon, who's just taken the checkered flag to win here, and that's going to be Johnson and Heldorn there, and you can see Centric has got that position. Deligueche had some kind of mistake. He's now about 2 seconds back. What in the world happened to the Frenchman? I think he's out of gas. He is very slow coming out of the final corner. I'm not sure what in the world that noise was that you emitted out of your mouth there, Aaron. Oh, I see a big puff of smoke from drivers blowing their motors up. Did Deligueche have some kind of slowdown? Is that what he said, Aaron?
I think so. I mean, all I noticed was that he was going very slow coming out of the chicane. And I mean, and unfortunately, it's due to the unique way iRacing changes sessions. We can't look at the replay. Now we can. Thank you, Samuli. We'll have a quick look at the replay maybe sometime. No, never mind. We cannot. Thanks, iRacing, for the unique way that you work. But yeah, take us through the grid, Ron.
We've got Tim Runn at the front of this B main here. The AM driver starting at the front, Deligueche there in P2, looking to have some kind of rebound after the unfortunate way his heat race ended. Amblor there in P3, Van Dalen in 4th, Gill in P number 5, Zootwell in 6th, Jay Walsh in 7th, Polliard in P number 8, Guzmel in 9th, and Lortzen rounding out the top 10. Then we've got Halt, Lorenzado in P11 and P number 12. We'll go through the rest. A lot of pro drivers starting towards the tail end of this field. That is going to be a really good storyline to follow in this race. Spetskins is going to be a man on a mission. The drivers are on their way now, heading into corner number 1. It's a pretty even keel start there from the drivers. I believe Ron had a much better start there than Deligueche, who's now trying to battle and hold off onto that P2 spot from Van Dalen. They're going side by side, heading into corner number 1. Drivers going 3 wide farther back. These drivers simply do not fear death. We've seen in the past these B main races are always quite hectic, and I think this race will be no different here at the Nurburgring, still going side by side. I think there might have been a little bit of contact with Van Dalen and Deligueche in that small little run between turn number 2 and corner number 3. These drivers getting through this lap 1 clean so far. I believe actually, no, that's Polliard. Right as I say it, the worst commentator's jinx I've ever pulled off in my year here commentating at Apex Racing TV. Spins exiting corner number 4. I don't think he made contact with any driver. I will say Hot has not had the best start in the world, currently running in P number 12. 13 drivers on track right now. Polliard, the AM driver, on the back foot as these drivers enter the hairpin for the first time by.
Oh, a bit of a look down the inside for Amballard, and he actually puts the pressure on Zousouali and he gets back past up into 4th place for the Frenchman. It's Dutch, French, then another Dutchman, then a Dane, and then 2 Brits covering your top 8 at the moment. It's been a fairly a bit more chaotic lap 1 than I think we've seen so far. Oh, it's about to get more chaotic. Zoutouali trying to defend from Loritzen. I think it's going to be to Loritzen's benefit, though, as Zoutouali just can't do anything. Runs a bit wide. It's still side by side between these two, though. The Dutchman getting the slipstream from the cars in front. Loritzen's going to be left on the outside to dry, but he's going to have to be brave on the brakes. He moves ahead of Zoutouali, and that was some good cooperation between those two. Oh, a bit bumpy over the curbs, though. And have to be careful not to get that slowdown. Lorenzato and Spetkins going side by side. Of course, all 3 of these pros had a pretty awful first heat race for them. Oh, there's a big crash. I think that's Loritzen is one of those cars. That's horrible for his Pro-Am Championship hopes. And that was Zoutouali as well, who's without a rear wing. Polliard comes into the pit lane as well. That was I was just saying that it was a little bit more chaotic, and then, well, it turned into a very chaotic end on that first lap.
Both pull off commentators' jinxes. We're seeing, just a small little bit of contact and another driver getting sent up into the air. That's just hard racing coming through the final corner there. 2 drivers fighting for the same piece of real estate. Going through that final turn ends in tears. For the both of them, they will be out of it. Zoutouali is back in the pits, and Lortzen with a little bit of damage. I'm sure there is some sort of suspension damage after that hard clunk going through the gravel trap. But right now, Tim Runn, another Dutch driver, is running at the front of the field, has a 0.4-second gap between himself and Van Dalen. That's a Dutch 1-2, then a French 3-4, and a Brit 5-6, and that's another another French 7-8 as well there. So anyone watching the stream here on Apex Racing TV with OCD is very happy about the top 8 right now, but I'm sure that will change in the later section of this race. 3 minutes into this 14-minute affair here, so a little bit longer here for the B main, a little bit of time for these drivers to try and shuffle for positions even more, but also a lot of time for these drivers to make mistakes. We've seen so many mistakes thus far. Right now though, we have a teammate dominated 1-2 currently in this race. Will that play a role in it? We've actually got teammates running in 1-2 and 3 and 4, so I think team orders, will they play a role here in this finish?
This is completely off topic. Actually, I'll save the off topic for a while. Oh my lord!
Oh my god!
Luan Hart going onto the grass. Again, Spetkins goes off, and that's surely going to be a slowdown. I think Spetkins was being rather aggressive with his defense there. Oh, that's naughty there from Spetkins.
They're not happy with each other. I think I know why too. Hot went for a pretty over-ambitious move heading into the chicane, and that was the reason why Spetkins went off the track in the first place. Hot is a very aggressive racer. I wonder if there's any sort of damage. They definitely made contact. We're taking a look at a replay following Hot. First off, this pass in the grass, or attempt at pass in the grass, going down into this back straightaway, entering the chicane. But actually, no, that's very aggressive defending there from Spetkins. Hot still went for the move though, and made a little bit of contact, overshot it. Thankfully, those two drivers escaped without any sort of major damage, but that's naughty. That may be, the stewards may have a look at that after the race. Yeah, that may be a penalty.
Yeah, you never like to see that. I will have to say that was a bit reactionary from Spetkins. He was a bit hesitant on his defense, and then as soon as he realized that Hot was trying to go to the left, he moved over to the left very aggressively to cover up to the white line. And it was a bit ambitious from Hot at the same time, and then they just kind of collided in the chicane, and you'd hope that'd be the end of it. But then that's the stewards are going to definitely want to have a word with Spetkins at some point, because that was very unnecessary, reactionary what he did while serving his slowdown. So yeah, we never want to see things like that, of course, and I understand drivers can get a little bit heated, but yeah, there's not really too much of an excuse for doing stuff like that. But we're going to move back up to this battle. So far for the lead, Amballard has been on a pretty good charge at the moment. He's gone well so far in this race, had a bit of a poor start, but then got himself back into third, now up to second, and surely is going to take the lead of this race coming into the first corner, as Rutten goes a little bit wide coming through that final corner. Amballard's going to have a pretty good amount of slipstream, and let's see if Van Dalen chooses to try and attack as well. It's a bit far back for the Frenchman, but I imagine he's going to try go for it anyway. He looks up the inside, and actually I do say Van Dalen goes for it, but I have a feeling that was very he was doing that for the team, and fair play. I think he knew the move wasn't on, but he'd try and unsettle Amballard as much as he could. And I mean, I don't think there's a rule against doing that, really. So he definitely scared Amballard, as he had to take avoiding action. And well, Van Dalen didn't lose any places but he has unfortunately put himself right into the firing line of Degrelodre.
Speaking of that firing line, as we're taking a look at this replay here, you said there isn't a provision in the rule. I don't think there is any sort of provision in any sort of racing series rulebook saying that teammates can be used as basically a scare tactic. Yeah, that is... I wouldn't go as far to call it a kamikaze mission there from Mark Van Dalen, but it was definitely there to discombobulate the driver that was trying to challenge his teammates. Run at this point is putting on a fantastic drive. The AM driver still holding off on the lead, has a 0.5 of a second gap between himself and Amballard about halfway through this race. But you can see a massive, very much running wide there. Is Amballard coming through corner number 11 there, as we're seeing some side-by-side action farther in the back. I will say, on the subject of Van Dalen putting himself in the firing line of Delegudre, now he's trying to get the move done on Amballard. After Amballard's mistake heading through corner number 11, he will back out that move before they get on the brakes heading into that chicane. But right now, Lorenzato has broken past Jay Walsh, as we're seeing nearly going side by side, entering the final corner. Jay Walsh was acting like a little bit of a roadblock there, was running a P5 for quite some time, lost out on that position to Lorenzato. They're going side by side this time, well, the last time by going down the start-finish straightaway. But I think Lorenzato, it may not be over for him just yet. He has about a 2-second gap to close if he wants to move into that transfer spot and challenge De La Guedre. But if these drivers make mistakes like Tim Runn has, he's spun out of the lead and is now going to spin out of a transfer spot. Now Lorenzato looking to get the move done, and he gets the move done. Heading into corner number 2, the leader who I just complimented about 45 seconds ago spins coming through corner number 1. We have to take a look at a replay. Runn pulling off one of the worst bottle jobs I've ever seen.
Wow. I was gonna make a joke, haha, funny, but then I realized nobody here watches football, so I'm just gonna not say anything, and just keep that one to myself. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That was a bit silly from Tim, not gonna lie, and it's it's put him in 5th. Not only has he lost the lead, he's put himself outside that top 4, which is definitely not ideal for his championship hopes. And yeah, he didn't really need to push. He had a decent gap to Amballard, and even if he did get caught by the Frenchman, it's, you know, it's just a grid spot. I will keep saying this until the end of time. It's a grid spot. That's all it is. It's one more grid spot. It doesn't count towards anything. No points. It's just a grid spot. You don't need to race like it's the championship final. This happens so many times. Honestly, we had it so many times in Porsche Cup where people were fighting like maniacs for a grid spot. It's not worth it. Trust me, it's not worth it crashing into your opponent. But hey ho, these drivers never usually listen to me anyway. But oh well, we'll see what he can do over these next 5 or so minutes. Can he get himself back up into the top 4? It's not out of the question, of course. He's got De La Guedre and Lorenzato in front of him battling, and I don't think the two Frenchmen should fight each other too hard for the reasons that I have just explained. But being the 3rd car in a train like this is always awkward. But I'm going to eat my words as Lorenzato tries to go up the inside of De La Guedre for 3rd place, and both Frenchmen going at it at the moment. We saw them going wheel to wheel, I believe, in Heat 2, and unfortunately for them, they both ended up missing out on the transfer spots. De La Guedre annoyingly only just on that last corner missed out to centre, and he's trying to make up for it now. But he's got another Frenchman behind him, and then a Dutchman who surely deserves to be inside that top 4, but of course made that earlier mistake, which is just making his life that little bit difficult.
Don't have much time left in this race, but I have a feeling that Tim Runn will snag his way into those transfer spots. The question is, who gets bumped if he does? Obviously, Lorenzato, who just had a bad run, coming out of the 8th corner, the hairpin at the far end of the track. I think he may be the one to mention as one of them that would drop at. I don't have a good feeling about De La Guedre, though. He is not holding his own in terms of catching up to Van Dalen and Ambler farther up the road. If anything, he is holding up Lorenzato, who in turn is holding up Tim Runn, who's dropping his way into Jay Walsh, currently running in P6, having a fantastic run for the Brit. If these 3 drivers come to blows, he could find himself in a transfer spot, which would be a great run for him, but we'll see how things make up in the final stages of this race. 11.5 minutes in to this 14-minute affair here, and it's still not over yet. Ooh, Lorenzato going for a move, entering the chicane, and big lock up there, nearly making contact, those 2 drivers do, and Runn is now really feeling himself in this fight. De La Guedre is not feeling himself in the slightest. If anything, he is feeling a lot of pressure from the AM driver and the Pro driver right behind him. You can see the big defensive block to go down the inside. These drivers nearly going 3 wide, going down this start-finish straightaway. Who will prevail in this fight? Will they make contact? Heading through corner number 1, and now Jay Walsh is looking at these drivers battle very hard, and he is salivating at the opportunity. Meanwhile, that's a fantastic move from Guzmel to slide into that fight and bop Tim Runn another position. Meanwhile, Runn is at risk of losing a spot to Jay Walsh there, falling out of the top 7. That would be a disastrous turn of things for him. Meanwhile, Larson has had some sort of mistake. Not sure what in the world happened to him. Must have been some kind of accident. Coming through corner number 1, but a very dramatic fight, and this is still not over yet. I believe they'll be taking the white flag this time by. It's going to be borderline if this is 1 lap to go or 2 laps to go here. Either way, these drivers have to push to their absolute limit here if they want to have any sort of chance of making it into the A main race.
I mean, honestly, this went for a 3-car fight all the way to about a 6 or 7-car fight real quick, as that's Guzmel, who does have a tiny bit of front wing damage at the moment. That's going to hinder his progress. He pushes Tim Rutten all the way out wide, and Tim actually loses out to Jay Walsh as well in that process, and it just keeps getting worse and worse for Tim. He's gone from 1st to 7th in the space of about 2 or 3 laps, and it's seemingly just getting worse and worse. It could have had to get even worse as Luan Hot seemingly tries to go for a move. It's a bit of a lock-up from Tim as Luan tries to get through, and they've got a feel for Tim. It's it keeps getting worse. He's now lost touch with Jay Walsh, and he's about to be overtaken by the Brazilian, making his way through up into 7th place. Is Tim going to try and fight this one? Would be a bit surprised if he didn't. He's got the inside line, and that's surely contact. It is. Luan Hot gets sent round at that chicane, and well, that's going to be fairly awkward between those two. I think Luan Hot has already had some incidents today, and well, that's just added another one to the big list today for him. And we'll take a quick replay of the further up battles going on, as we saw this on the timing sheets. They were just swapping places constantly. This is between Tequileltre and Lorenzato. Going side by side into the chicane always is very awkward, and yes, Tequileltre got half spun coming through there and lost out. And well, he's now outside of those. Oh, that's Spetkins getting spent around, and Guzmel as well has been sent round at some point, and he's without a rear wing, so something has clearly happened within those few
Jay
corners.
Walsh in P4. Jay Walsh, he has clawed up into the
God.
transfer spots. I think we'll take a look at a replay to see what in the world happened here. We're following Guzmel in the middle of that fight. He was a driver that entering this corner last time by. Oh no, it was a big stack up of all those drivers. Jay Walsh was in the middle of that. There has to be damage, some sort of damage on that F4 car. I was wondering if Spetzking's going off here as well. Oh no, that was just a little bit of contact with the damaged cars. I was going to say, as they started this final lap, I did not have a good feeling about Spetzkins being right by his old buddy Luan Hot, but here you can see, speaking of hotting up, Van Dalen going for a move on Ambler to take the lead of this B-main race in the dying stages. Beautiful move heading into corner number 11. It is still not over yet between the two of them. He was mega sideways coming through turn 12, and these drivers are going to be fighting before they enter the chicane. Ambler is going to have the inside line. It's going to be a battle of the last late breakers. Van Dalen being very aggressive, holding him into that inside line. Still going side by side. Van Dalen holds off any sort of challenge, but he had to go very shallow into that second part of the chicane, and now Amblard is trying to look for a move down the inside of the final corner. This is a white flag, so they're going to run to the checkered flag, and Amblard gets a move done at the last corner to take the win of this B-main. It's going to be a photo finish between the two of them, separated by less than a tenth of a second. Meanwhile, Luan Hunt and Jay Walsh are battling, beating and banging each other coming around the final corner, and it's going to be a photo finish. Jay Walsh holds it off. And I believe with that, he'll also take the win in the AM category, because no other AM driver is in the A main. Jay Walsh gets the battle of a lifetime. He finished 4th. He didn't finish on the podium in this race, but he got that transfer spot, and that will be the sweetest P4 spot in Jay Walsh's entire life. That was a very hard-fought last lap.
Honestly, I did not expect that run to the line from them at all. And, well, Luan's hot luck today just keeps getting worse. He missed out by, I think, a measurement we can't measure on iRacing. Let me have a quick look, because that was absolutely insane between them, just those two. That was honestly mental. And, of course, we got the 3 minutes warm-up there, just to take a little bit of a breather from what on earth just happened there.
Did Jay Walsh get a penalty? Is that what happened? I'm looking at my screen now. Did he get a penalty for that race?
He did.
Oh
yeah.
my god.
I think he did. Yeah.
Oh
that's
man,
such a shame. I think it was a 45-second penalty. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah.
According to our iRacing screens, it's saying he finished 56 seconds back of the winner. Oh, that is such a shame. It was looking like absolute heartbreak indeed. It was looking like complete sheer for Jay Walsh. And as I said, if he managed to get into that position, I think that would have been him winning out. I think it must have been some kind of incident point violation, because I'm looking at the iRacing chat, and he's apologizing for that incident in turn number 1. Maybe he picked up a penalty because of the incident limit violation there. If he didn't have that, though, that would have been an absolute Cinderella story. Oh man, that is such a shame there for Jay Walsh.
I don't think I've ever seen two drivers finish on the same time. I've seen them finish to 1,000th of a second, but not to the same. So that's incredible. Between those two, there was definitely a fourth digit in there that meant that Jay Walsh finished ahead, but yeah, it's a bit of unfortunate that he got that penalty. I'm guessing that there was a bit of a contact between those two coming. I think Tim Rutten as well might have had contact into that last chicane, because him and Jay Walsh were running side by side and he ended up finishing like 2 seconds back. So I think he might have just gotten, I think, 8 incident points on that last lap, on that last corner with Luan Hart, and then also at 1 point with Tim Rutten. But absolute heartbreak for Jay Walsh. That could have been incredible. But I think that means we only have, what, one driver who's ended up into the A final as an AM, and I think that's Labinson. So, yeah, just he's going to have to pick up as many points as he can in that amateur championship. And so we've got 40 seconds left. I need a zesty drink.
I think the both of us do, honestly. I heard the nice fizz there of whatever zesty drink you have. I think we can't actually mention brand names, which is the reason why we had to say we're not actually sponsored by Domino's at the very top end of this broadcast. I need a zesty drink as well. I think we'll both need some zesty drinks, because after this Apex Racing Academy Formula 4 Championship broadcast, we'll be right back on Apex Racing TV with the final ever race of the Formula 3.5s. That series will be discontinued at the end of this current season, which is just coming in a few days' time. So this will be the last ever broadcast of that series, Week 12 at Interlagos. That's a race I'm really looking forward to later on this evening. So if you want to stay up to date of all the stuff going on here on Apex Racing TV, remember to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell as well. We've got a stacked weekend with Weekend Warriors coming up tomorrow on Sunday, as well as the CMS IRTES broadcast tomorrow. That's a 4-hour long endurance race. That's going to be epic on Super Sunday here on Apex Racing TV. But the warm-up session is over, and now we got the grid for the A main. Wellen at the front, Poon in second, Heron in third, Johnson in fourth, an all-pro front four. That's McFarquhar in fifth, Heldorn in sixth, Burgesson in seventh, Labinson in P number 8. You're right, it was the only driver to make it into the A main as an AM driver. That's Michelson in ninth, Seth Lee in 10th. That's Harvey Jones and Centurk running at your top 12. You can see the rest of the field, 16 drivers. Luan Holt right there at the bottom of the field. He's had a very dramatic meeting here at the Nurburgring thus far. We'll see how this race goes for him. So we're waiting for some of the drivers to line their way up on this starting grid. And I gotta imagine we're in for an extremely hard-fought A main race. That B main was epic from start to finish. Hopefully everyone tuning into the stream here on Apex Racing TV enjoyed it as much as we did here in the commentary booth. I have a feeling that this A main is going to be just as hard-fought as the 3 races that came before it. The 5 lights are going to be at, and the drivers will be on their way into corner number 1. Johnson did not take the start there, so it's only 15 drivers taking the start, and it's Wellen having a fantastic one, blocking off very aggressively to hold off Poon in P number 2. You can see all these drivers shuffling all throughout the field. You can see Centurk dropping back, Ambler dropping back as well. Not the best start in the world for a lot of the pro drivers, but it's a great start there for Wellen, who leads the field coming into turn number 3 for the first time.
There was a bit of a lock up there for Bergson, yeah, and Heldorn as well. Nearly got wiped out there, as McFarquhar looks very feisty on this opening lap. Is he going to try and overtake Heron? We've seen McFarquhar be rather sensible like we did in his opening heat against Bergson, so I expect him to be sensible in this race as well. He's a very respectable and fast driver. Just had a bit of an unlucky start to the season, but it's fairly calm at the moment. It's a lot calmer than it was in the B final. Let's hope that can continue all the way to the end of this first lap. Up at the front, it's still Wellen who's leading the way. It seems like his teammate Kumala hasn't turned up for the last few rounds, which is a bit of a shame, since they were the Finn duo, and well, they took each other out all the time, so it added some entertainment for us, but that won't happen anymore. Maybe that's why he hasn't turned up, because every single race they did, they crashed into each other, so maybe that's just a team game, you know, but we'll send Kumala to a different series where they can both dominate each series. Probably a smarter idea. But either way, they're both fantastic drivers as Wellen is still leading the way at the moment, and I think everyone's going to be a bit sensible on this first lap and wait for an opportunity later down the line.
Yeah, I think that's a very good reason for the Wave Italy Racing team to break those two drivers up after they crashed into each other in the two races that they had in this series. Silverstone, they came to blows battling for the lead, and in Okayama, they came to blows running in 1-2. So I think Kumala will probably see him maybe in the Apex Racing Academy Porsche Cup that's coming up here on Apex Racing TV. Michelson trying to get a move done here on Labinson, going down the start-finish straightaway. Labinson with a car that we haven't really touched on throughout this season. He's got to be on the outside in that dog-themed paint scheme. He's trying to stick it around the outside. He's now going to have the inside line heading into turn 2, and he holds off that challenge there from Michelson. A fantastic defensive move there to hold on to P7, but still not over yet. Michelson doing the old switcheroo on him heading into turn number 3, but he's still going to be stuck on the outside, and he's going to lose a position there to Harvey Jones, who's now racing quite hard. That was a big move there from Michelson to actually go wide, and now they're going 3 wide heading into corner number 6. This is not a corner that you see drivers even go side by side on, and that's why they all three come to blows, and more drivers getting caught up there as well. I believe that's Jones, Michelson. That's the first driver we've had upside down tonight, and it is Michelson. Womp womp indeed, Aaron. That is very predictable for them, going 3 wide heading into corner number 6. Again, these drivers simply do not fear death. They didn't want to back out of it, and Michelson were riding on board with it, and there we go. Our camera feed blanks out there as he goes into the asphalt. And that was unfortunate for all those drivers to be involved in that incident so early on into this race, but at the same time, that was also extremely predictable. And unfortunately for Lee and Holt, it seems like they were caught up in that incident as well. So, I'm struggling to find the words, but stupid, I guess, would be the best move. If I was their team owner, I would probably whack them over the head with a hammer if I see them going into corner number 6 on this track 3 wide, because that's not a corner you see drivers go side by side on, let alone 3 wide, even in these small little F4 cars. Drivers giving it them all. If I was a team owner in this series, I'd be very upset, but here as a broadcaster, I am absolutely loving the action that these drivers put on the track every single week.
I mean, that's why I went womp womp, because it's like, well, you go 3 wide into turn 5, you get what you beeping deserve. So, not the smartest thing I've ever seen on the second lap, not gonna lie, but yeah, I unfortunately ended up with about 4 or 5 cars involved, and so it's basically wiped out the lower half of the midfield, unfortunately, and well, let's just wait and see what happens over the rest of this race. The top 6 are still fairly close to each other, which is a good thing, of course, but yeah, we'll just wait and see what happens. We've got Labinson, who's still surviving as the sole amateur in this race, up to 11th place. That should be a nice haul of points for him in that particular championship. McFarquhar 4th in the Pro-Am, so that's going to be good for the Pro-Am championship. Heldorn going well in 6th. Van Dalen down in 10th. Not too bad from him, of course, considering the fact that he started from the B final. So fair play from the Dutchman. He's doing rather well at the moment. At the top, Poon and Wellen are actually fairly close to each other, and perhaps we might actually see a battle for the lead at some point. Here's hoping, because I don't think we've had a battle for the lead in a couple of weeks. So I think we're due one at some point.
I think with that crash that we saw in corner number 6, I think I've come up with a great idea for merchandise for the Apex Racing Academy F4 Championship. Just imagine this on a t-shirt. The Apex Racing Academy F4 Championship. The more you bleep around, the more you find out. And we're seeing maybe McFarquhar's going to find out if he goes for a move on Heron. Heading into the chicane, he backs out of it there. You can see Burgess nearly getting rear-ended by Heldorn. All these drivers getting close to each other in the braking zone there. I thought that Burgess was going to go for a move heading into the final corner. Won't be the first time, won't be the last. And you can see now Heron. Did he pick up a slowdown coming through that chicane? Is that the reason why he dropped back like a rock? Yeah, he did. So that's very tough turn of things for the driver that's been involved in the championship fight all season long. He will not like to see that while Wellen is leading the front of this field right now, 0.3 of a second. Meanwhile, we've got side-by-side action here. Burchison trying to get the move done, and you can see Heldorn trying to, actually, no, that was McFarquhar. My apologies. We're running on board with Heldorn as he's seeing McFarquhar and Burchison battle it out farther up the road. Ooh, now Heldorn trying to look for a way around McFarquhar. It's a repeat signs of what we saw earlier on tonight when we saw these drivers battling as hard as they possibly could. Will Heldorn hold off in this fight? I think McFarquhar, he may not be the fastest car in terms of this fight, but he is a very good defender, and he knows when to attack. He knows when to fight in these races. So I think Heldorn is going to have a challenge on his hands if he wants to move up and overtake McFarquhar, and maybe even challenge Burgess for that final podium position. That'd be a fantastic result for one of these Pro-Am drivers. Meanwhile, the gap between Welland and Poon is about 0.4 of a second right now. Could we see that battle heat up? We could see a lot of these battles heat up. We're only 7 minutes in to this 18-minute A-main race, and we still have so much left to be decided.
Well, these guys battled it out in one heat race, and they're going to be doing it again, hopefully all the way until the end. Just add Heldorn into the mix this time. And, well, Bergson versus McFarquhar. Who's going to win out this time? Bergson won out for the first round. Who's going to win out this time? We've got about another 10.5 minutes to find out. And, well, if anything of the last battle between these two to go anything, McFarquhar is rather sensible until the last lap. And then, oh, that was a bit hairy. Got a little bit too late. Oh, fighting the car through that curb. And, well, nearly ended his entire race. That could have been awful for the Brit. Just about managing to keep the car on the road as the car just got completely unsettled going over that chicane. And he's put himself under a bit of pressure from Heldorn. And, well, let's see what Heldorn chooses to do. This is going to be for the Pro-Am lead. Heldorn does choose to go up the inside. And it should be a bit of a textbook move from Heldorn. But he's made it a bit difficult for himself and can't quite get it done on the Brits as he's locked up massively. Let's hope he can keep it clean and just about keeps it ahead of Archie Heron as well. McFarquhar making a mistake and then Heldorn making a mistake. They're all making mistakes. It's just allowing the Swede to run away with it. But they're still running fairly close to each other. And, well, if this keeps on happening all the way for the next 10 minutes, it's going to be really, really entertaining as they go side by side. Bit of contact between Heron and Heldorn. Heron should have the advantage with the inside line coming into this hairpin, and he brakes a lot later than the Dutchman and gets his way back up into P5, but has a bit of ground to make up on McFarquhar now. And you can see Senturk as well getting involved, and, well, we might see him getting involved and battling for the P3 as well.
As my untimely constipation said as I went through corner number 7, the fact that Heron and Heldorn got away with that contact, that was basically complete wheel-to-wheel contact, they got away with that without spearing their way into the tire barrier, is truly unbelievable. That was hard contact. Hopefully there isn't any suspension damage on those two cars. That would be a disappointing way for that fight to end. It's still not over yet. I can see a big puff of smoke, maybe a lockup farther up the road. Actually, no, that was just a small little glitch on our end. We're following Welland currently at the front of this field. He actually has some lap cars farther up the road. Lee and Michelson are right in front of him. Meanwhile, McFarquhar gets a move done on Burgesson to move up into that final podium position, but still not over yet. We'll see Burgesson if he can get a great run coming out of the final corner and go for a move into turn 1. Who he's looking at the outside there. That would have been very bold if he tried to do a pass on the grass like Hall tried to do during that second heat race. You can see now Heron involved in this fight, trying to get the move done on Burgesson. Burgesson trying to go for the switchback as he goes through corner number 1. Heron holds it off for now. They're sending your reigning champion farther back and now into the clutches of Heldorn there, who's now trying to hold off Senturk, who's caught up to this field quite nicely. A fantastic recovery drive from the Turk, who we thought was barely going to squeeze his way into this A main race. We thought that he was going to be a sure lock for that B main, but thanks to some end of the race screwery there in that second heat race, he made it in and is putting on a pretty good drive right now. As you can see, Heron trying to go for a move into the podium position, so he spins McFarquhar around. The two Brits make contact heading through corner number 7. And it's the second lap in a row that Heron has made contact with one of his competitors and has sent this battle into chaos. Now Senturk trying to find any way he can to get past Burgesson. You feel so bad for McFarquhar, who's dropped back like a rock. Thanks to that contact, I won't be too shocked if there's some sort of suspension damage on that Brit's car. Oh, that is such a shame.
Yeah, pretty much spot on, and McFarquhar's bad luck continues, and that's an aggressive move from Senturk. He wants to get these places, and he wants them now. He does not want to wait at all, and goes up into 4th place, but has just let that gap between him and Heron extend a little bit. Is Bergson gonna go actually try and attack? I can hear him lifting off, so I'm gonna guess that's a resounding no. And they're gonna try and catch back up to Heron as Heldorn tries to find a way through, but they end up going single file, thankfully, through this chicane. But we might have to look at a replay of that contact between McFarquhar and Heron, because from the angle that I was at, I couldn't quite see what really happened between those two. And Heron, I'm guessing, just maybe ran a bit wide and went into the side of McFarquhar. Senserk trying to go defensive, but I don't think Bergson was going to attack anyway. Nope. He stays as is for the moment. And I believe this is going to be the replay between these two. And we're going to ride on board with Archie Heron. And does McFarquhar make a mistake? Archie sees a gap onto the curb and hits him. And not sure about that one. I'm not going to lie, that was a bit... They both just didn't really leave each other room, I guess. I'm going to put that one down to racing incident. I think maybe McFarquhar could have given him a bit more room on the inside, but I don't know. What do you think, Ron?
Yeah, I think that was very much a racing incident there. I'll put on my race steward hat there and say that those drivers were just racing very hard. It's a little bit disconcerting the fact that that happened fairly early on into this race, but the fact that Heron is a championship contender, as well as Farquhar trying to fight for that Pro-Am title, that could have been the reason why they were racing each other so hard. What caused that incident, I will say, was Heron. He carried a lot of speed coming through turn 6 and was stuck to the inside of turn 7, really forced himself to go for that move. He had a very shallow entry. Heading through corner number 7, which is a corner you more want to hit the late apex on. Speaking of the late apex, you can tune on to that here on Apex Racing TVs on Fridays. But getting back to that incident, he had a very early apex, had a shallow run there, and with that shallow run, he had to turn in a lot more to not drift up into Burgesson, my apologies, not to drift into McFarquhar earlier on in the corner, and just sadly for him, that got the rear end of the car out just a little bit, had to go for the snap there, and sadly it just ended in tears. So I think Heron, you can't really say that any of those drivers did anything wrong. It's unfortunate that that incident took them out of contention, while it took McFarquhar out of contention. I wonder if there's some sort of damage on Heron's car as he's now going side by side with Centaur, going down the start-finish straightaway with just a few laps to go in this race. About 4 minutes left to go now, and that is going to be a hard-fought fight here for the final podium position, involving 3 pro drivers and an AM nearly pushing Centaur off the track. He is. That is hard racing between all these drivers. Heron cutting off Burgesson as he went through turn number 2, still trying to go side by side with Centaur here and making contact. They are coming through turn 3. The fact that NC Centaur get pitched up into a flip there is unbelievable. But here we go, heading into number 6. Centaur scares me as well, because I think this may end in tears. Okay, thankfully they're going single file. Actually, no, I say that Centaur trying to look for the move, trying to go for the move that Heron put on McFarquhar earlier, but he pulls it off a bit more successfully and doesn't send his adversary off spinning wildly through the gravel trap, but he didn't get the move done just yet. They're very close to making contact. That was definitely wheel to side pod contact between Centaur and Heron as he went into the hairpin, and that was definitely more contact as they exited the hairpin. These drivers fear no death. There is nothing that they fear in these Formula 4 cars. They feel absolutely invincible, but they are not. If they try and have any more contact like that, they will end in absolute tears, and we could see a driver like Amblard or Heldorn end up in that podium positions, because all these drivers, really Burgesson is the only one that hasn't been driving like a jackbutt, if I'm being brutally honest. Heldorn, it's just unbelievable, the fighting that we've seen with Centaur and Heron. Heldorn is a very hard racer as well. So Burgesson, at this point, I think he needs to keep it clean and stay away from the 2 up in front of him, and he may be at a risk of finishing on the podium. He may have a shot of finishing on the podium with these 2 racing as hard as they are.
The racing is hard, and so am I. Centaur is racing absolutely fantastic right now.
Well, I mean, boy, we can't get rid of it. I don't know if we can get away with that, Aaron. You're skating on thin ice there, my friend.
I mean, as a commentator, you have to come up with these quips, and I just came up with one to describe the racing perfectly. So, I stand by my comments. Go away. This racing is fantastic. I mean, we had 4 cars separated by about 4/10 on that last lap. If that doesn't make you excited, I don't know what does. This is motorsport at the absolute finest. And although at times Centaur maybe was pushing the limits with getting way too close to Heron. I don't know, but I mean it's entertaining, so I do not care. I hope this continues all the way until the checkered flag. I think this is not going to be the last lap. I think we're going to have another one after this, which I'm glad we get another lap of fine racing for this last spot on the podium. And Sentok has got really good pace and seems to be very aggressive, but Archie Heron seems to have good pace and is very aggressive. So we'll see the outcome between those two. I think Bergson and Heldorn will be the ones battling further behind. I think Bergson doesn't quite have the pace to match them. And we've also got Amberlod and McFarquhar battling for P7 as well. Well, we go through these corners for the second to last time, and it's just extending a little bit between these guys. It was very close on that last lap, but as we head around these final few corners for the second to last time today, it's super close between these two. From Sentok all the way to Heldorn, it's just about a second, so anything can happen. Sentok is wrestling the car through that last chicane as we head around the final corner for the penultimate time. Wellen and Poon are way up the road. We could also see a fight between those two. It's super close. I don't think it's close enough for Poon to go for a move, but that could happen later on in this lap. We'll keep an eye on that. But we know how good Wellen has been over these past few rounds, so it's going to be tough for Poon to try and get his first race win this season. But we'll keep tabs on those two as we head through this last lap. But further back, Sentok is still just about ahead of Archie Heron, and it's still incredibly close between all four of these guys. And I think we might get a last lap lunge. I'm not sure. I don't know who from, but I think it's going to be super close. We might have another run to the line. I'd love that. A fantastic end to today. It would sum it up perfectly, to be honest. But Sentok has looked really quick today, but has just gotten himself involved in a few incidents. And Heron actually seems to be dropping back at this point and is under pressure from the Swede of Bergson heading into this hairpin. I don't think Bergson's going to fight, though. Bergson seems to be very calm and very collected, but it's half a second now between Heron and Sentok. That might just be a little bit too much as we head into this final sector. We'll keep an eye on the leaders as well. I think it's just going to be a bit too much for Calix Poon as well, and kind of knows that Poon was waiting for this final lap to see if he could go for it. But Wellen has just put on the loud pedal and absolutely sent it. He's half a second ahead of Calix Poon at the moment, and it looks like it's going to be a very comfortable victory for the Finn. Once again from Wave Italy Racing Team, he looks to be the one with the momentum at the moment. He also might be the favourite for the championship. He's gained many points on Archie Heron today. He might just be able to gain more later on this season, but that's contact between Heldorn and Bergson. I think there was contact between those two, but it's Wellen who takes the feature race victory here at the Nurburgring. Bergson, I don't think, is going to be able to get back on Heldorn as they finish 5th and 6th. Sentok finishes on the podium. It's going to be a run to the line between Amberlard and McFarquhar. Amberlard wins out that time round. And unfortunately, we didn't get the last lap battles that we were hoping for, but nonetheless, that was still a fantastic session of racing. And wow, that's the Nurburgring for you. It was very entertaining from start to finish, but predictably, it's the Finn at the top step of the podium today once again.
You know what's unbelievable? The fact that Alexander Michelson were following him here. Is he still on the lead lap after flipping? Coming through turn 6, he is still on the lead lap. That is unbelievable. After that very risque joke with about 2 laps to go, I was thinking of one involving Michelson. After his flip there, the flags were at half-mast, and as was I throughout a vast majority of that race. See, now, if Aaron gets in trouble, I will get in trouble as well. He won't be the only fall guy from this race. Michelson, I mean, the fact that he is still running on the lead lap is unbelievable, but I will say, Lee, if he was just a few seconds slower throughout this race, he would have been a massive pick in that Wellen and Poon fight, because he only finished that last lap 1 minute and 56 seconds behind Wellen, so they were only separated by about 2.5 seconds by the time they took the checkered flag. Wellen and Poon did. So the fact that Lee was so close to getting involved in that fight, I think Poon was really hoping for lap traffic to play a factor in that finish, because if it did, that probably would have been Poon taking the win. But still, very good drive from him to finish in P2, but it's Wellen taking taking a win, a very hard-fought win all throughout this race. I wouldn't say it's not nearly as dominant as the one he had in Bathurst. That is for darn sure, but still, he looked to be the man to beat today, and the man to beat he was. We're seeing now Seth Lee be the last driver to cross the finish line. Only 13 drivers end up taking the checkered flag of this race after the drama that we saw from start to finish, and I think we'll take a look at the results here in just a few moments' time from capping off a dramatic night of action here from the Nurburgring. That's going to be Vetty Wheelman Wellen taking the checkered flag here, 0.6 of a second ahead of Calix Poon in P2. Senturk will be running at the podium in third. That's Archie Heldorn in, it's Heldorn and Heron in P4 and P5. Archie Heron in fourth, and Heldorn in P number 5. That's going to be Burgesson in P number 6. Ambler in 7th, McFarquhar in 8th, Lorenzato in 9th, Van Dalen in P number 10. Labinson is going to be the winner in the AM category, finishing this race in P11. Michelson will be one of the last drivers to take the checkered flag in P12 after ending up in this race on his lid at one point. That's going to be Seth Lee, who's also involved in that crash, finishing in P13. The last of the drivers to take the checkered flag, that's Harvey Jones and Lewin Holt, the drivers that DNF'd from this race. And Jordan Johnson, who did not take the start. I'm not sure what in the world happened to him, but still, P16. It was looking to be a good race. He was starting this race in the top 4, but sadly for him, thanks to some issues, maybe it was some kind of equipment issue, that would not be ideal for the American driver to finish this race in P16. You can't even say that he finished the race in P16. He didn't even take the start. That's a shame for him, but wow, that was dramatic from start to finish. Besides the boner jokes that may get us in trouble, that was still hard-fought racing from start to finish. What we expect from this Apex Racing Academy F4 Championship, and just Aaron, just thoughts on the action that we saw here tonight.
Standard F4, isn't it? Just chaos, entertainment all the way throughout. And again, a bit sad we didn't end up having a fight for the win. I don't think we've had one since the second round, unfortunately. It's been rather dominant from Wellen, to be honest, but yeah, you have to appreciate dominance when you see it as well, apart from if it's Max Verstappen, then it becomes boring. But, I mean, yeah, you just got to appreciate Wellen and what he's doing. He's really showcasing how good he is in that Formula 4 car, and, well, I mean, if you're this good, he could end up going on to a bigger series in the future, because I don't think I've seen someone be as dominant as this in a Formula 4 car before. So yeah, just commiserations to him and the Wave Italy team. They're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, they are absolutely dominant all throughout this season. They've been the force to be reckoned with all season long, and I gotta imagine that's going to continue into a race that I've been looking forward to, Spa. When Season 2 comes, we're going to have rain as well. That's going to be a good race in Spa in 1 week's time. Sadly, we do have a driver waiting in the interview waiting room. This is an internal dilemma because, Aaron, do we want to save our voice, or do we have a quick little chat here with Calix? I think we'll bring him in because he was involved in a lot of fights from start to finish. Calix Poon, thank you so much for joining us here in the commentary booth. How was it out there?
Oh, yeah, it was amazing, I would say. Like, compared to, I would say, a bit of bad luck and things didn't go my way at Bathurst. Like, this round was, I would say, much, much better.
Was much better indeed. You take the checkered flag in P2, and I want to touch on that fight that you had with your winner Wellen all throughout this race. We saw that Lee was a little bit farther up the road. Were you hoping that he would act as a little bit of a pick in that fight? Were you hoping that you'd catch up to lap traffic in this race?
Oh, I wasn't even noticing there was lap traffic, to be honest. I didn't thought of, like, I think I saw like a glimpse of Lee, but like that wasn't in my mind at all. I think my strategy like today is just to, like, in the feature race, is to stay with him in like the first half where we don't battle, and then we can gap the guys behind, and then try to launch an attack at the end, like 1 or 2 laps. But he outsmarted me because I think the last 2 laps he just went slightly bit quicker, which just made like any overtaking move or just didn't work for my plan slightly. But I think it's still really good, like, because I got P2. So yeah, I mean, I don't think the lapped cars were part of my plan, but yeah.
We were thinking that could have played a small little bit in the way that race was decided, but still put on a fantastic show there. And you mentioned trying to find any sort of way to get past Wellen. We will see plenty of more overtaking opportunities when the series returns here on Apex next time out at Spa. So what are your chances? What do you think about the other race at Spa in 1 week's time?
I haven't raced in Spa for a long time. I think last time I raced there's 2021 possibly. Well, it's just because of like different stuff popping up, like with my real life stuff. So like I didn't have time or just any time to do, like for example, the 24-hour Spa. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I haven't, as I've said, I haven't practiced that track for quite a while, so we'll see. But of course, you know, we got a long straight. It'll be a DRS, or not DRS, we don't have DRS. Will be like a slipstream train once again, so it'll be fun.
I think the race at Spa next time out is going to be akin to Silverstone that we saw earlier on in this year, so I think that's going to be very hard fought. Fingers crossed for your sake that we see you running up towards the front in that race as well. Calix Poon, thank you so much for joining us here in the commentary booth. Is there anyone you'd like to give thanks to or shout at?
Yep, so I want to shout out my sponsors, Z Challenger and 36 Technology, as well as my designer, Brandon, for designing the car livery as well as the post for Instagram. Thank you.
Always have to give a thanks to the sponsors. Everyone watching the stream here on Apex Racing TV can ignore the voice crack that I had right then and there. But Calix Poon, thank you so much for joining us here in the commentary booth. Good luck next time out at Spa. We hope to see you there.
Thank you.
That was Calix Poon, your second place runner from tonight's race. And Aaron, I'm going to ask you the same question that we just asked him a few moments ago. What are your thoughts heading into Spa next week?
It's probably going to be the most chaotic round of the season. I'll keep this one short because, you know, we got a broadcast in 15 minutes. But yeah, it's going to be probably the closest race we've had all season, and should be good.
Oh, I think it's going to be absolutely awesome. Akin to Silverstone with a mix of some of the stuff that we've seen at the more tighter and twistier tracks. That's going to be a great race to watch here on Apex Racing TV when it comes up in 1 week's time. So if you want to stay tuned for that, you can hit the notification bell to be reminded of everything that's going on here on Apex Racing TV, because even though we have week 13 coming up, you do not want to miss the action that we have day in and day out, week in and week out. So speaking of, the next time you'll see us here for the Apex Racing Academy F4 Championship will be next Saturday, same time, same place here on Apex Racing TV, and we hope to see you there. And again, the next time that you'll see me and Aaron is going to be in about 15 minutes time for the finale, the final ever race of the Formula 3.5 series. That'll be at Interlagos. That's a great race, so we hope to see you there as well. But as for this broadcast, that'll do it. So for myself, Ron Mullins, Aaron Smith joining me in the commentary booth, and Samuli Kumo working on the cameras in the virtual production hauler, I say thank you all so very much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all again in 1 week's time.